Well, hey everyone, this is Chris DeFirio with Keys to the Shop. Welcome to another episode of Shift Break. Today's episode of Shift Break is brought to you by La Marzocco. They've been making espresso machines by hand in Florence since 1927. That is almost 100 years of listening to their customers and creating espresso machines that serve the needs of those of us out there making coffee. Generation after generation of barista and entrepreneur has built their business and career around a La Marzocco for a very good reason. Their quality, dependability, and again, their connection to their customers. One great example of this is the KB90 espresso machine. They invented straight-in locking portafilters for this machine to help with ergonomics. They also have built-in scales for the precision of your extractions, and then you've got the auto flush feature, which increases cleanliness and helps workflow. And that's just one example of many different kinds of espresso machines that La Marzocco creates that will fit your coffee shop perfectly. La Marzocco is available to help you make that decision. All you need to do is reach out, email one of their salespeople over at info@lamarzocousa.com, and be sure to check out their website as well, lamarzocousa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Espressly. Mobile ordering, of course, is one of those things that has just continued to grow, especially after the pandemic, and the last couple of years has shown that customers are going to continue to want this kind of accessible way of ordering their coffee. And you don't just have to settle for the same kind of app that everybody else has. You can have your own custom branded mobile app through Espressly. It connects your brand with the customer experience and the convenience of mobile ordering. With Espressly, it's a no-risk model. Because there's no setup or development fees, you get a drive-through payment scanner, receipt and label printing capabilities. All the data is stored in the app, and it works with some of the best payment processing systems out there, including, of course, Square. And I definitely recommend you check them out to get started on your custom-branded mobile app today. To do that, go visit them over at espressly.co. That's espressly.co. Okay, everyone. Well, today I wanted to talk about, maybe upselling, but really in particular, I want to talk about how to create a conversation around customers' tastes and getting them the right coffee for them. And then we can branch out from there and talk a little bit about upselling in general. And this is all based around a question that one of my clients recently asked me. And I'm going to read part of that question to you and then give you what my response was to this question. So here we go. So the question is, when someone walks into a coffee shop to buy a bag of beans, how do they know what they're going to like? So my client talks about how there's, of course, the notes on the bag that you write, and it talks about, the things that you taste in the coffee. But then beyond that, how do they really know what they're going to like? Is there a way to maybe even, do something like samples of the coffee that you could give people that gives them an idea of this coffee, right? So there's a lot going on here, and I want to answer this question in particular on this show, and then kind of go from there into sort of the principle I have in upselling with customers in general. So let's talk about the how to get people to get the coffee they like question. First of all, yes, we do have notes on the bag. We have the descriptions of the coffee that we taste. Now, if you're describing your coffee based on your cupping notes, I think you're doing it wrong. First of all, I'll just put a stake in the ground there and say your customers are not cupping your coffee. They may be drinking from a cup, but they're not cupping it. And so you need to be brewing that coffee similar to how your customers will be brewing it, at least off of a batch brewer or a pour over of some kind, and then basing the way that you describe your coffee on that extraction and not on the slurping and pageantry of cupping in the back room. I think that's important because then it makes it relatable, a little bit more likely to be relatable at least. And we have to stay away from the very esoteric and narrow descriptions where we talk about things like persimmon and white peach and other very narrow categories of understood flavors that people generally don't understand. The reason why customers are baffled by coffee oftentimes is because we are baffling them with what we say about coffee. And it's not, I wouldn't say, quote unquote, dumbing it down to make it simple. It's not wrong to say that coffee, it has a smooth and nutty or chocolate kind of characteristic to it. In our sensibilities as professionals, sometimes we feel like we need to do more because it can't be that easy. Because if it is that easy, boy, what does it say about me and my profession? I feel like it's a pride issue that makes us not want to use simple terminology, and we create these overly wrought descriptions in order to puff up the expertise that we possess within our palates and all that stuff. So first of all, on the bag, yes, there are some great opportunities for communication. I think communication needs to be made in a connecting way. Know your audience and also pull your audience. So this particular client has been a roaster for a little bit and is opening the first coffee shop. And so the idea is pull your customers and see how they describe your coffee to you. Use their language when you go forward and talk about coffee or even print things about coffee. And it's more likely to connect with them, to get them something that they're going to like, right? Now let's move beyond the bag and talk about other things that you can do. It's really not realistic for you to brew samples of all your coffees and have them available all the time for people to try, because that's going to equal a lot of waste. And fact is, even on a batch brewer, it's not going to be the exact kind of scenario where the customer will get a taste for the coffee the way they're going to taste it every day at home, because they might be using a different kind of brewer, different water, all that stuff. So you can't really have a sample all the time. You might have actually days where you do sampling. It might be kind of an event that you say, well, once a week or once every 2 weeks, we're going to brew all of our coffees within these hours, and you can try all of them, right? So without sampling every day, let's think about what we are doing every day. We are selling coffee. We have an opportunity to give the customer some coffee on a regular basis. And if we're only brewing one type of coffee all the time, then we're not going to be able to give them a sample of what we have available. I'm a big fan of the idea of having an anchor coffee. It could be a house blend or a particular origin that is a crowd-pleasing coffee, and then a rotation of single origins, blends, and features that complement what you have as your anchor coffee. That gives your customers an opportunity to try lots of different styles of coffee. Or you could even have just one coffee on sample in a batch brewer urn that you have in a smaller container on a daily basis. What this is getting to is the idea that this is a process. It's not, there's no equation in which we can guarantee that because we've written the right things about this coffee and we've given the customer the opportunity to try it in the shop, that they will automatically love it at home. Really, people need to buy the bag, brew it at home, and see. What we need to do is be able to enter into conversation with them so that they take their experiences and can sort them out properly. We can make sure that we can follow up with our customers and say, how did you like that coffee? Or which ones have you tried and how did you like them? We can make sure that we're training our staff to recognize when customers have that quizzical look on their face, or just in general, assume that people want some kind of suggestion or guidance when they're standing in front of the bean wall or whatever you call it, where they're just kind of standing there, but they're reading or looking, they're not purchasing. You don't have to ask the question, can I help you? The answer is yes, of course you can help them. Walk up to them and suggest a couple of different kinds of coffees on one spectrum and one on the other. Something heavier, darker versus something lighter and brighter. And then see if you can move the conversation to ask other questions like, what do you like in coffees? When you're drinking a coffee, what are you loving about it? What are you looking for mostly? And validate their response. Don't make them feel foolish. It's your job to take what they're saying, translate it into, oh, well, they say that they like something that's strong, has a good kick, and they take cream and sugar in their coffee, so maybe we're going to give them this slightly more developed blend and see how you like that. Now, this interaction, if it's very focused on their tastes and hearing feedback from them, you're already going to get somebody open to liking your coffee way more than if they were just left on their own to read the label, hope that it tastes like what the label says, and then have nobody to talk to about it. So the answer to the question about how do people know what they're going to like is basically by trying it and talking about it with you. We can set them up to make really good choices on a macro level, but that doesn't always guarantee that they're going to like that particular coffee, but they're closer because of our conversation and because of our conscientious way of going about communicating through the labels on the bag to finding something that they really will like. And now that kind of opens up the conversation to generally upselling at the cafe, where we don't necessarily have magic phrases that guarantee that people are going to purchase more. What we have are magic dispositions where curiosity creates opportunity and passion for the business creates conversation. If your staff are excited about a product, they're more likely to talk about it. And they're also paying attention to the customer and saying, it looks like they might want something else. If they're staring at the pastry case, we can have the same kind of conversation that we had with the customer looking for beans with the person looking for cookies or cheesecake or bottled beverages. I don't care what it is. We have to be curious and conscientious at the register and at these places of sale, so customers feel like we're there to help them find the right thing in that moment and maybe well into the future. So there's some thoughts for you on helping people choose what they're going to love. It has everything to do with how we approach our work, how we approach people in the conversation we have with them in the course of their decisions in our business. We are a place that sells stuff. People are going to spend money. It's not wrong to upsell somebody. It's wrong to force it on them, to really try to push it, against the person's will almost. That's not great. People don't like that. It's a little combative and it's self-serving, right? Upselling is more about experience enhancement than it is about trying to get more money. So the term upselling automatically makes you feel like, oh, we're going to upsell means make them spend more money. We're enhancing their experience by giving them every opportunity to get something that will create joy for them in food, in beverage, and ultimately with their experience in our coffee shop. I hope that all of that is helpful to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and I will see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break. From keys to the shop.